You know those neckbeard nests you see on Reddit? The ones with a mountain of dew cans and unidentifiable sludge? I always thought those were exaggerations. I thought, nobody actually lives like that. I was wrong. I lived with one for 6 months, and I had no idea until it was too late. I'm a 28-year-old nurse. I own a nice 2-bedroom condo in the city. It's my sanctuary. I keep it minimalist, clean, and smelling like vanilla candles. Last year, a friend of a friend, let's call him Greg, 30M, was looking for a place. He had just gone through a breakup and seemed decent enough. He was quiet, worked in IT, and dressed normally. I figured, why not? The extra $1,200 a month would help with the mortgage. The first 2 months were fine. Greg paid rent on time. He stayed in his room mostly, gaming with headphones on. He was the ideal ghost roommate. Month 3 is when the shift happened. First, it was the rent. He texted me on the 1st, "Hey, bank transfer issues. We'll have it to you by Friday." Friday came and went. He paid 2 weeks late. The next month, he paid 3 weeks late. He always had a new excuse: payroll glitch, identity theft, wallet stolen. Then came the smell. It started subtle. A faint, musky odor in the hallway. I thought maybe he had skipped a shower or left some gym clothes out. I bought a plug-in air freshener and ignored it. But the smell grew. It evolved. It went from locker room to rotting garbage mixed with something sweet and sickly. I knocked on his door one evening. "Hey Greg, everything okay in there? It smells a little off." Through the closed door, I heard shuffling. "Yeah, sorry," he yelled. "Just some old pizza boxes. I'm taking them out tomorrow." He didn't take them out. By month 6, I rarely saw him. He would slip out at 3 a.m. to go to the convenience store and rush back into his room like a goblin avoiding sunlight. He stopped paying rent entirely. He owed me $2,400. I finally decided to evict him. I printed out the notice. I was going to tape it to his door on a Tuesday morning before my shift. I walked up to his door. The smell was overpowering now. It was hitting me in the back of the throat. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. "Greg, I need to talk to you." Silence. I tried the handle. Locked. I had a bad feeling. A really bad feeling. I hadn't heard him typing or gaming in 2 days. I went to work, anxious all day. When I came home, his car was gone from the assigned spot. I went back to his door. I knocked again. Nothing. I grabbed the master key from my lockbox. My hand was shaking. I was terrified of what I would find. Was he dead? Was there a gas leak? I unlocked the door and pushed it open. The door only opened a few inches before it hit something soft and heavy. The smell rushed out like a physical blow. It smelled of ammonia, rotting food, and mold. I gagged, pulling my shirt over my nose. "Greg," I called out, pushing harder on the door. I squeezed through the gap. The room was dark. The curtains were drawn and pinned shut. I fumbled for the light switch. When the light flickered on, my brain couldn't process the image. The floor was gone. The furniture was gone. The entire room, from wall to wall, was waist-deep in trash. And Greg was gone. His computer was gone. His clothes were gone. He had fled in the night, leaving me with a landfill inside my spare bedroom. I stepped into the room, and my boot crunched. It wasn't a dry crunch, like stepping on a leaf. It was a wet, squelching crunch. I looked down. I had stepped on a Domino's pizza box that had seemingly dissolved into a pulp of cardboard and black mold. The smell wasn't just in the air anymore. It was sticking to my clothes, my hair, my skin. It was a thick, cloying mixture of rotting meat, stale dairy, and something sharp and chemical, ammonia. I used the flashlight on my phone because the overhead light was flickering. The bulb was coated in something sticky. I swept the beam across the room. It looked like a landfill had exploded. There were mountains of takeout containers. Styrofoam clamshells stacked 4 feet high, some of them buzzing with fruit flies. I saw a KFC bucket that was moving, literally moving, with maggots. But the bottles... Oh God, the bottles. Along the far wall, lined up like some twisted trophy collection, were dozens of gallon milk jugs and 2-liter soda bottles. They weren't empty. They were filled with a dark, amber liquid. I realized with a jolt of nausea that the ammonia smell wasn't cleaning product. It was urine. Greg had been too lazy, or too depressed, or too monstrous, to walk 10 feet to the bathroom. He had been urinating in bottles and hoarding them. There must have been 50 gallons of biohazard waste sitting against the drywall. I covered my mouth with my shirt and waded deeper. I had to see the extent of the damage. The carpet was gone. I mean, it was there physically, but it was destroyed beyond recognition. It was stained black, sticky with spilled soda and bottle leakage. It squished with every step. I made it to the en-suite bathroom. The toilet bowl was black. I won't describe it further, but it looked like it hadn't been flushed or cleaned in 6 months. The sink was clogged with hair and what looked like coffee grounds. The shower curtain was torn down, lying in the tub, covered in pink slime. I backed out of the bathroom, trying not to retch. I looked at the walls. My pristine, agreeable gray, painted walls. They were destroyed. There were holes, punch marks, at fist level near where his desk used to be. Gamer rage. He had lost a match and put his fist through the drywall. There were grease stains above the bed where his head must have rested against the wall, a dark halo of filth. I walked over to the closet. He had left the door open. Inside, shoved into the corner, was a pile of my towels. He had stolen them. They were crusted stiff with... I didn't want to know. I stumbled out of the room and slammed the door shut, leaning against it in the hallway, gasping for fresh air. I did the math in my head, and I wanted to cry. Carpet. Ruined. Needs total removal and subfloor treatment. $3,000. Drywall. Holes need patching, texture, and repainting of the entire room. $2,000. Biohazard cleanup. I couldn't clean this myself. I needed a hazmat crew. $4,000. Bathroom. The fixtures might need replacing. $2,000. Lost rent. $2,400. Greg had caused over $13,000 in damages. He had smiled at me in the kitchen. He had told me he was just taking out some boxes. And the whole time, he was living in a nest of his own filth, destroying my biggest investment. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a trash bag, intending to start. Then I stopped. No, I wasn't cleaning this. And I wasn't letting him get away with it. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a cleaning crew. I called the police non-emergency line to report vandalism and destruction of property. And then, I called a private investigator friend of mine. Greg thought he could disappear into the night. He forgot that he filled out a rental application. I had his social security number. I had his mother's address. I wasn't just going to sue him. I was going to ruin him. The next morning, a van pulled up to my condo. It didn't say, maid service. It said, biorecovery and crime scene cleanup. 2 guys got out wearing full white Tyvek suits and respirators. My neighbors watched from their windows, probably wondering if I had murdered someone. In a way, I had. I had murdered my patients. It took them 2 days. They filled 40 industrial trash bags. They had to cut the carpet into strips and peel it off the subfloor because the liquids had soaked through. They had to use an ozone generator for 48 hours to kill the smell. When they were done, the room was a concrete box. It was clean, but it was a shell. The bill came to $4,800. I added that to the list, along with the drywall quotes, the lost rent, and the cost of a locksmith. The grand total was $14,250. The hunt. Finding Greg wasn't hard. People who live like that usually don't have the energy to cover their tracks properly. I used the information from his lease application. I found his parents' address in a suburb about an hour away. I hired a process server, a big guy named Tiny, to pay them a visit. Tiny told me the story later. He knocked on the parents' door. Greg's mom answered. "Is Greg here?" Tiny asked. "He's in the basement," she sighed. "He just moved back in. He's going through a hard time." Tiny walked down to the basement. Greg was there, setting up his computer, surrounded by a fresh pile of Taco Bell wrappers. He had just transplanted his nest. "You've got mail," Tiny said, dropping the lawsuit on his keyboard. The court case. Greg didn't show up to the first hearing. The judge granted a default judgment immediately. But here is the thing about judgments. They are just paper unless you enforce them. I knew Greg didn't have $14,000 lying around. But I knew he had a job. He worked remotely for a mid-sized tech support firm. I knew this because he had bragged about it when he moved in. I filed for a wage garnishment. 3 weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Greg. "Dude, seriously," he whined. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded annoyed. "HR just called me. They're taking 25% of my paycheck? I can't afford that. I have to pay my mom rent." "You should have paid me rent," I said, sitting in my clean, vanilla-scented living room. "And you shouldn't have turned my property into a biohazard zone." "It was just a little messy," he shouted. "You overreacted with the hazmat team. We could have cleaned it with some bleach." "There were 50 gallons of urine, Greg," I said coldly. "That's not messy. That's mental illness. And now you're going to pay for every single drop." "I'll quit my job," he threatened. "Then you get nothing." "Go ahead," I said. "The judgment is valid for 10 years. I'll just renew it. And I'll garnish your tax returns. And if you ever try to buy a car or a house, this will be on your credit report. I'm not going away, Greg. I'm your new roommate. I live in your finances now." I hung up. The aftermath. He didn't quit his job. He was too lazy to find a new one. Every 2 weeks, a check for $400 arrives in my mailbox. It comes directly from his employer. It will take about 3 years for him to pay off the debt. Every time I cash that check, I buy something nice for the condo. I bought a new rug. I bought a nice plant for the spare room, which is now a guest room again, but strictly for friends I trust. The spare room is pristine. The walls are painted a fresh, crisp white. I still have photos of the nest on my phone. Sometimes, when I feel like being too nice to someone or skipping a background check, I look at them. They are a great reminder that while kindness is a virtue, a security deposit is a necessity.